We are back here on the Lynn Hayes Freeland Show. So you know what? One of the best things, one of the nice things about this show is when we get to celebrate our own, so to speak. And Nandi Nelson is one of those. She's one of our own from Pittsburgh doing big things like this, among others. Jake's Adventure, a trip to summer camp. If you had a chance by, I don't know, maybe you got to go to her book signing. She's here on the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's go back before we talk about the book.
Okay.
I mean, talk about what you've been doing. I mean, you're a native Pittsburgher.
Yes, I am. So I have been doing a lot of promotion in terms of bringing awareness to autism spectrum disorder. So as you mentioned, I am a native of Pittsburgh. However, currently I'm living in the state of New Jersey, and I have a private therapy practice where we provide in-home as well as school and center-based services to children that have a diagnosis of autism, in addition to supporting their parents as well.
But, and maybe I should have said this in your introduction. One of the things that makes your story unique is you are a Pittsburgh Promise.
Yes.
You are the recipient of the Pittsburgh Promise.
Yes,
so
I
you
am.
are a perfect example of what can happen with that Pittsburgh Promise.
Absolutely. So I am the first class of students that was the recipient of the Pittsburgh Promise in 2008. That was the first year that they provided that scholarship. So with that scholarship, I was able to go to Penn State University, and there I got a Bachelor's of Science in Human Development and Family Studies. And I feel like with that opportunity to be awarded with the scholarship monies, I was just able to do so many wonderful things. I don't even think I would be where I am today without the support of the Pittsburgh public school system, specifically the Pittsburgh Promise Scholarship.
And when you look back at that time in your life and that almost that moment in time, I mean, I remember when the Pittsburgh Promise was kind of rolling out, and there were some people who said this is going to be a wonderful opportunity. There were other naysayers. What was going through your head, your heart at that time?
I was just super excited about the Pittsburgh Promise. I think that originally, I know that they first had those parameters that you had to go to a school in Pennsylvania. I had always thought that I wanted to leave the state. So I felt at that time it was a little bit limited, but also there were wonderful schools within the state that I was willing to apply to, and very fortunate to be able to get accepted to. So once I did have that opportunity and got accepted into Penn State and knew that I would be able to use those funds to support my schooling, I just went with that because, again, school is pretty expensive, so I wanted to make sure that I was utilizing all the resources that were possible, and I felt like the Pittsburgh Promise really helped to decrease any of the financial burden that, you know, my family had, and then when I graduated that I would have been left with. So that was very, very exciting, and even though there were those parameters surrounding the school, I'm kind of happy that that happened, because I feel like everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
I don't know where I would be if I didn't go to Penn State University.
Now, did you know then what you wanted to do?
No. When I went to Penn State, I was all about learning more and exploring more about individuals and children and families of parents that were incarcerated or that are incarcerated. It wasn't until I went to graduate school where I got my first introduction to autism spectrum disorder.
Okay. All right. So then you are in Pittsburgh this week, I'm guessing for a variety of reasons, but one of the things was to launch the book and do the book signing. Tell me where the idea for Jake's Adventure, a trip to summer camp came from.
Well, it actually stemmed from my clients, as well as my work that I do with what we call quote unquote typical developing children. There's not a lot of awareness in general surrounding autism spectrum disorder. There is a rising rate, specifically in Pennsylvania. There is 1 in every 75 individuals autism, and globally 1 in 59. So the odds are that a lot of the children have a classmate or have someone within their school or even their family that has an autism spectrum disorder. And what I really wanted to do is to help spread awareness as well as help individuals and children, even adults in that matter, be more accepting of the diagnosis, and also show children that you can also be friends with someone that's different than you, because sometimes bullying can occur, and I think that may happen when you really don't understand what's going on.
Indeed. All right, we're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the book.
Okay.
And how you put it together, and we're going to talk about the story.
Okay.
Because it's a great story, and it's one that needs to be shared. So we'll do that and so much more when the Lynn Hayes Freeland Show continues. So don't go away.